All right. Good morning. Good morning, Jeff Grant.
Good morning, Babz Rawls-Ivy. How are you?
I'm good. And welcome everybody to Criminal Justice Insider. I'm Babz Rawls-Ivy. That's
Jeff Grant.
And we are back on the first and third Friday of every month. We bring you Criminal Justice Insider. And thank you to the Community Foundation for their support.
Yeah.
And the sponsoring of this show.
We're going to try to get through our technical difficulties
Okay,
today.
Jeff, who we have on today? Oh, and our loved ones.
Oh, yeah. We got to say hi to Lynn Springer.
And Andrew Kaplan, who support us.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So today we have on...
everybody's been having tech problems.
Yeah. So today we have on three wonderful people from the Prison Journalism Project. Yukari Kane, Shaheen Pasha, and Christopher Etienne. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes.
I did okay? I did okay?
Yes, you did fine.
And we have a we're going to let them introduce themselves, but we had a great pre-show conference a couple of weeks ago and learned all about their project and how specifically how Yukari and Shaheen got to know each other through a project at San Quentin. Is that right? And they're dedicated to journalism from people who are in prison and bringing it out into the public. They have a website and they have a lot of projects going on. I'm sure they're going to tell us all about it. And Chris works for them now, and he's formerly incarcerated, like as we are. So, so we'll be able to talk to him about his writing and how he got to know everyone too.
All right, welcome.
Thank you. Shaheen, do you want to start?
Sure. I'm Shaheen Pasha. I am the co-founder and co-executive director of the Prison Journalism Project and also an assistant teaching professor at Penn State University, where the Prison Journalism Project is housed. Yeah, I've been a journalist for about 20 years, and I used to cover law. I worked for the big names like CNN and Reuters, and I used to cover law and business news. But it wasn't until I actually became one of the millions of people that was touched by incarceration. In my case, my best friend, my loved one, he was sentenced to prison in New Jersey for 127 years. And that was a huge wake-up call for me. He was actually one of the last death penalty cases in New Jersey post 9/11. And it was one of those moments where I was faced with this world that I didn't know anything about, that I had never really thought about beyond just what I covered in court cases and things like that. And I really wanted to help, to do something for him, because I saw somebody that has so much potential, so much intelligence, and there was nothing for him inside. And it really got me. And it was something that kind of haunted me, I think, for years, even as I progressed as a journalist. Eventually, I became an educator. I became a full-time professor at UMass Amherst. And I started volunteering, and I was able to volunteer at a local county jail in Northampton, Massachusetts. And then when I went in there, they were like, "Oh, great, fantastic. You want to volunteer? What do you want to teach?" And I said, "Oh, I want to teach journalism." And they said, "Absolutely not. No," right? Because it frightens them. Journalism frightens people. There's a huge antagonistic relationship, or traditionally.
Now, right now, yes.
Sure. And, trying to really convince them that, no, I'm not trying to burn it all down. I'm literally just trying to help people tell their own stories was a feat. But eventually, they let me do it under another name, Intro to Media Writing, which is journalism, right? That's what it is. But it was a nice semantic shift, which they liked. And it was fantastic. I mean, the guys I worked with loved it. I loved teaching them. And the stuff that they came up with, I mean, the fact that the news literacy aspect of it, and the fact that they understood that people cared about their stories and that they had stories to tell that nobody else knew about, was a huge eye opener for them and for me. And eventually my partner, who's one of our advisors now, one of our associates, he and I started volunteering together. And then we launched a class where we brought UMass students into the jail to work alongside these incarcerated men. And they did phenomenal work. I mean, the stories that they told had never been touched on, that I hadn't seen anywhere, because no one else had ever thought to touch it, because all the coverage was from the outside. So eventually, I said, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do with my life. I want to teach journalism. I want to teach it nationally. I want to teach the men and women inside how to do this for themselves. And I was really fortunate because I got a fellowship at the at Harvard at the Night Visiting Nieman Fellowship to do this because they saw the potential for it. During that period, as I was researching how to do a curriculum and a textbook and how to do this, I came across San Quentin News, which is an award-winning prisoner-run newspaper, and everyone I came across said, you need to speak to Miss Yukari King. You have to meet this woman. She's phenomenal. You have to meet her. So I went out to the Media Lab to meet the guys there, met Yukari, and it was like the sun came out and the synergy was there. And we just honestly, it was just one of those moments like divinely like done, right? And I think Yukari and I on the drive back from San Quentin when she was dropping me off where I was staying in San Francisco, the entire Prison Journalism Project came out of that car ride.
Wow.
Wow. That's a good story.
Yeah.
That's a good story.
You know, Babz and I have that kind of synergy too. So we're relating heavily.
Oh, no. I do what Jeff says. I don't really.
yeah, sure.
Let's make no mistake.
Yeah,
I do what
sure.
Jeff says.
Sure you do. So Yukari, why don't you introduce yourself? Then we'll have Chris introduce himself. We'll get into conversation.
Sounds great. So I'm Yukari and I'm also the other co-founder and co-executive director. And I too was a journalist for about 20 years. I mainly spent my career covering business and technology. I was at Reuters and the Wall Street Journal. I covered Apple during Steve Jobs' last years. And I had left the Journal to write a book about Apple called Haunted Empire. And the week that my book launched, I found out I was in stage 4 kidney failure. And there's nothing like needing to get on the transplant list and getting a transplant to change one's life perspective. And I think I just realized that my career seemed predictable, and I wanted to do something outside of the box. I did a lot of thinking about why I went into journalism, and that's when there was an email from a friend saying that San Quentin News was looking for somebody to teach guys who wanted to write for the paper. And so that was my first interaction with prison, and it was perspective changing. It was a real eye opener. First of all, the fact that a newspaper could exist inside prison, that there was a way that stories could be written without the internet and within the confines of a community like that. But that also the richness and depth of stories that were out there. And I was also teaching at UC Berkeley's Graduate School of Journalism at the time. And so I had, I was working with some of the best and brightest. And, honestly, these guys were, some of them were just as good or even better. And there was, and in terms of eagerness and determination, they just brought it in spades. And it became quickly, one of my passion work, and that's when Shaheen and I met, and she was talking about this vision to get more journalism inside prisons. There were, there used to be a ton, and now there was essentially San Quentin News and a very small handful of others, and so that's how we got started. And we'll talk more about how we ended up publication, but I'll turn it over to Chris.
Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, all. It's an honor to be here.
Now you gotta have a killer story, because the other two women had a killer story. So yours must have to hit it out the park.
Yeah. So like I'm Christopher Etienne. I'm actually a justice impacted individual. Basically, I started my journey in the inner cities of actually Asbury Park, New Jersey. I come from a family, an immigrant family. Both my parents are from Haiti, so I had this awesome upbringing that taught me that poverty is the same in different areas of the earth. Like the only thing that really changes is the environment. And so after I was sent to Haiti at an early age, I transitioned back from Haiti into America, like probably like 5 or 6 years later after going to school in Haiti. And I transitioned into the inner cities of Fort Myers, Florida. And while I was growing up there, I just learned the level of, how should I say, of hardship that ended up just molding, like what my life would be in the future. My mother was an educator in Haiti, so even though she didn't understand much in America, she understood that, education was a key of like really getting out of the hardships of poverty. So I was like an actual student of busing while I was growing up. Yeah, so we used to have like the bus come from privileged areas into the hood, the rich suburban kids would make fun of us because like they would actually see how poor we was. They're like, ew, like what the heck is happening here? And that was like my first introduction to what it meant to be actually segregated in society, what it meant to feel like you belong to a lower class, a second level of society. Regardless, poverty was something that I wanted to escape while growing up. So when I transitioned back from Florida into New Jersey, I ended up dropping out of school at the age of 15, and I went to the streets because the teachers didn't give a damn about us. All they did was throw us packets and told us to figure it out. We wasn't even allowed to take books home, and like my father at the time didn't care enough to even know how I was performing in school. But the guys on the block did. Like the dope dealers, they had no problem buying me some shoes. Like they had no problem feeding me when I was hungry. And they actually stood up for me when other people would put me down, or when other people would make fun of just like like the hardships I had to endure in life. So I looked at them as brothers, and they became my new family. And they taught me how to hustle, and they taught me how to just stand on my own, because I felt like while I was growing up, I always had to depend on people. And they taught me how to like just depend on myself, become an individual. Long story short, this sent me into prison because I guess I got the hang of actually selling drugs. I ended up doing it well enough to be under Fed investigation, and I found myself in prison around individuals who were locked up for tax invasion, for like shysters, like locked up for insurance fraud, and of course, people who are locked up for dealing heavy drugs, like kilos of cocaine and stuff like that. And to be honest with you, I found another family while I was in there, because I was, young, and at the time I was facing 25 years.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, a lot of the older heads, they took a shine into me, and they sat me down and said, "Hey, the streets isn't the way. Like what is your thoughts on education?" And at first, I'm like, "Look, I'm looking for a plug. I'm trying to go out there and sell the most drugs I can when I return home." And they're like, "Well, I can show you another way to be successful." So
Wow.
they taught me how to read the stock market. They taught me. They introduced books to me. That basically like opened the doors of opportunity for me. They introduced me to like Black leaders, and they hassled me, and so I went back and got my GED at school. And while I was getting my GED, I found another group of intellectuals. It was people like Shaheen and Yukari. They were people who never have been incarcerated, but they were educators that felt that there was potential behind the wall.
Mm.
And so these educators felt that I was a decent writer. They felt that I had some type of potential in me, and they introduced the idea of college for me. This is something that was never even on my radar. I never even thought about college, but I knew that I was passionate about learning. I knew that when I learned about people like W.B. Du Bois, Frederick Douglass, Marcus Garvey, Booker T. Washington, individuals that came through crazy circumstances and was able to carve a path out in the world for themselves. I thought that I would be able to do the same thing. I'm like, I have no excuse. So I took them up on their offer. I took college courses while I was incarcerated. I was able to ace like all of the classes that I took. Transition out of prison. I'm like, okay, it's either a dope game or it's college. I had two choices. And I'm like, okay, let me start off with college. I started off at community college at first. Then I was able to transition into Rutgers University. I was given an opportunity by a wonderful man, like a human angel, basically. His name is Donald Roden. He started an organization called the Mountain View Project that actually helped individuals who are transitioning out of prison get into post-secondary education. So he was able to help me get into Rutgers. I was able to graduate out of Rutgers with honors. And I decided that I was missing something. As somebody who was justice impacted, I felt that society wouldn't accept me until I could prove that I could go toe to toe with the elites. So I signed on to Columbia University. I was scared as hell, you know, when I actually went in there to take the test and to see if I could actually place in the school. And you know, like I got a call a week later, and they said that they would be happy to have me, despite my story, despite my background. You know, they were willing to accept me and give me a shot. And so I studied documentary journalism out of Columbia University. I was able to graduate. From there, I worked with multiple organizations. I went back and actually helped people who are incarcerated earn their GEDs as well. I helped them, you know, fill out college applications when they transition out to get into schools like Rutgers. I went back and helped the NJ STEP project and the Mountain View project that helped me get into college. Then from there, I ended up starting my own video production company. I ended up working with the serious mental ill population out of Rikers. I helped them transition back into society and get, you know, just like housing, access to education and other resources. And on this journey, I found Yukari and Shaheen through one of my old journalism professors, Sharon Adaro. And, you know, like, and that's the story right there. I love their project. I love what they were doing. Journalism is what got me excited about education in the first place. And, you know, like, and now I'm with the Prison Journalism Project as their multimedia strategist.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay,
Wow.
you win. That's a good story.
Yeah. By the way, you can do as many shout outs in this hour as you want.
That's a good story. That's a good story.
There's a lot of shout outs. There's a lot of shout outs. There's a lot of people who are holding the doors open for me. So yeah, like I definitely wouldn't be here if it wasn't, you know, for people who are willing to give me a shot.
Mm-hmm.
So Shaheen and Yukari, tell us about the project itself. Tell us the scope of it. I've been on the website. I've read a bunch of stories. I'm probably going to submit my story. So
that would be amazing.
Yeah. So tell me. Yeah. So tell us what that's all about and how you find your authors, and where you take them from there.
Great. So I'll start with talking about the publication, and Shaheen will fill out the education component. So, you know, we started as an organization intending to create a textbook and curriculum, and then the pandemic hit. And we just thought it was really important for voices from inside to be part of the historical record. You know, in addition to the fact that there was so little information coming out about what was going on with COVID and how prisons were dealing with it. You know, my own prison home at San Quentin is the site of one of the worst outbreaks in the US, and there was just nothing coming out. All communications was cut off.
That's what I was going to say. There's not much communication coming out about prison. There's not. Still not coming out about what's happening in prisons around COVID.
For sure. And so we put up a site on Medium, and we put a call for submissions. Shout out to Doran Larson at American Prison Writing Archive. He helped us get the word out about what we were doing, and we started getting flooded with submissions. And it really opened our eyes even more to how many stories there were inside, and this idea that nobody can tell the stories about that community better than the men and women who are impacted by it. That, you know, outside journalists with all our experience could do only so much, but, you know, the first person reporting has to come from inside. And then, you know, George Floyd happened, and so our writers started writing about George Floyd and Black Lives Matter, and they started writing about you know, mental health and of course COVID all through that, and it's just been amazing. As of today, we have nearly 300 stories from over 140 writers across jails and prisons in 28 states, and that's really, I think, leading to new journalistic opportunities that we're really excited about. You know, first of all, you know, we're not just a publication, we're a community. Our writers are our collaborators. We think of working with them. You know, they don't just publish for us. And now we're thinking about the kind of stories that we can do with them. And so, you know, if we came up with the idea, we sent in very detailed reporting instructions that were also training, and got back information, and ideally we'd work with a prison journalist to put together that story. Like what kind of picture would emerge, and what are the stories that could be told, not just about the things that are going wrong there, but also about community and friendship and love, and you know, I think the holistic story is how the system gets changed, right? For people on the outside to see the people on the inside, and to recognize that we're all fundamentally the same.
Did you have any problems getting stories out? Because as I understand it, everything is read and can be edited and cannot be sent or not. You know what I mean? Like they can decide whether or not the mail can come through or not come through. Did you have any problems with that?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say because we don't see the stories that don't make it, but we've seen a lot of stories that do. I think my sense is that the work that's happened before us, the existence of San Quentin News, the fact that there are too few, but there are prison writers who have published outside, and there are a lot of prison writing programs, and all of that has helped. I think there have been a couple of key court cases that has ruled in favor of First Amendment rights for prison writers, and so that has all helped. You know, obviously we're not doing anything super controversial, and we think there's a ton of stories that we think that there are a ton of stories that don't have to malign anybody, but still need to be told and heard. You know, Chris can talk a little bit about maybe the multimedia stories we're doing, and Shaheen can talk a little bit about how we train our writers.
You know, it just strikes me that what people don't know is that, and maybe Yukari, maybe you and Shaheen didn't know when you first got into it, that there's a real family, there's a community going on inside prison, and everyone kind of has roles like they do in a real family in order to maintain structure and respect and get everything done within because the people in prison do everything themselves. There's nobody doing it for them. So that must have been stunning to see, one, that there's actually a sense of community in prison, and two, it's like a think tank in there. You know, there's people with a lot of time doing deep thought and sharing ideas in ways that people don't even have the time to do on the outside. It would be lovely to have a salon of thought and be able to have that kind of expression. But in prison, you actually do have the time to do that. So did you find that, and then did you see that as something that you could tap into?
I'm going to take that because I absolutely 1,000,000% agree with you. I mean, obviously I had the advantage that I have, my best friend is inside. So I kind of got this bird's eye view of what life goes on inside. But what I think really sort of shifted, like opened my eyes, was kind of thinking about that population, that, that number that gets thrown out, 2.3 million, right? If you look at that number, that's the size of a small country. So that is like the population of, I always use the example, that's the population of Botswana. So how do you have an entire country, if we look at it, without any stories coming out of it, without any journalism coming from the inside? And I think that when I start thinking of it that way and saying, wait, I've been a foreign correspondent, Yukari's been a foreign correspondent, and we've, gone into different countries, we've done our thing and gone out. But in prison, that's literally all there is. It's other people, outsiders, coming in, telling these stories, and then going about their merry way. And it really struck me that that's not how journalism works. Journalism, the roots, the grassroots journalism comes from inside. It's the people inside those communities, the local community journalism, that really makes the largest impact, honestly. So in meeting these people and sort of talking to the men and women inside, that's how Yukari and I saw it. And we said, no, that's the kind of journalism, that grassroots community journalism where the change happens, because that's where you're going to get the real picture. And the thoughts and the ways of viewing the world, and just the questions. I think a lot of us, here that are outside of the walls, we kind of just accept things because it happens and we accept it. But inside, people question. People are questioning the outside. Well, why are you doing that? Makes no sense, right? And I was really, really just taken by just the possibilities of that. And just really sort of helping to develop that, because it's one thing to have those thoughts and have those stories, but if you don't know how to tell them properly, they fall on deaf ears, right? Or the community is too small. It could be a blog here, or maybe something, like something written outside there, but it's not going to have an impact. And that's where, I think Yukari and I shared that vision when we started it, that we absolutely want to, to teach inside. We want to allow for creative expression as well. That's important. But creative expression.
So does that give you a sense of why prisons and the prison complex system gets nervous about having journalism inside the walls? And I don't quite understand it, but I'm starting to understand just by what you just said about, it's the size of a small country. If you get everybody on the same page and start thinking about, liberation, that might create a sense of, we have to change things. Do you know what I mean? So talk a little bit about the pushback that you get from prisons around having these kinds of programs. Because I think this would be a wonderful way to excite and illuminate what is happening. But I also think there are some talented and bright minds that had you not gone there, you would not have known about.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, that's true. We haven't encountered anything. I think because we haven't done any intentional collaborative journalism pieces yet. But at the same time, and I think, the stories that we're talking about aren't just stories about, what they're getting or what they're not getting, but, just to give you a sampling of some of the stories we're seeing. Last week, the story about an incarcerated writer in California. He's a stamp collector, and he writes about how stamp collecting has been one of the ways he's really alleviated stress during this time, and how he uses mint condition commemorative stamps from his collection, and he chooses the stamp that matches the interest of the recipient, and how the non-collectors contribute their stamps, and he gives away any duplicates to a teacher in high school, a high school teacher in Ohio. We're working on some copy for a holiday card right now, and we were getting a story from Jesse Vasquez, who's the former editor-in-chief at San Quentin News, and he was talking about how the Christmas dinner treat was chocolate milk. And, moonshine is universal in prisons, but how he enjoys the chocolate milk more than any home brew. And this is his second Christmas that he'll be spending outside, but he still has chocolate milk on Christmas Day because it is a big treat for him, and also to reflect on how far he's come. And those are the stories that we think are also, if written as a feature story, like once you hear those stories and read about those stories, you can't unsee the people and writers anymore, right? And so a lot of those stories, I think, can come out. There's, in terms of a harder story, I mean, I'm fascinated as a journalist about the prison economy, and how the lifestyle is different depending on, for example, somebody could be making 17 cents a day, somebody else could be making $2 a day, and how does that lifestyle change inside? If we collect data from across, information from across the country, is there a picture that we would see? I mean, that doesn't put any particular prison administration in a bad light, but it does shed light. And so I think there's a lot. I mean, this population has had zero stories coming out, so there's so much. I mean, as Shaheen said, 2.3 million people are inside, and there's, there has to be.
So Chris, where did you serve? How long did you serve? And were you writing while you were in prison? And are those pieces available? Are those pieces on the website, for example?
So I served in Mountain View Youth Correctional Facility. It's also like a code name is called Annandale. And I served for roughly, I was able to get my sentence knocked down and ended up doing roughly 5.5 years behind the wall. And yeah, we wrote a lot. I wrote a lot. I have like everything from songs to short stories to poems that I wrote on the inside, and it also, and a lot of my writing and my studies were influenced by a lot of the pieces that I wrote inside as well. I haven't contributed none of the poetry or or the stuff that I wrote from the inside to the website as of yet, but I did contribute one of the essays that I wrote about the seriously mentally ill population and how they have become targets, of police officers. How like 40% of the unarmed people who are killed by police are people who are suffering from some type of mental breakdown. And so because I wanted to kind of highlight how like everybody who has been incarcerated suffers from some type of mental illness. We suffer from some type of trauma, we suffer from some type of PTSD, because trauma itself, just going without, or just experiencing poverty, or just not being able to be your unique self, it brings about trauma in us. And that's why I currently work in that field, because I want to help individuals who have issues with transitioning back into society. I want to highlight their stories, and I just want society itself to get a better understanding of how we're mentally impacted by these years behind this prison, behind prison bars. But I will be contributing some more writing soon.
So Chris, not to put you on the spot, and we'll come back to you in a couple of minutes, but if you have a short poem you'd like to read, we would be really honored.
Okay.
But that's definitely putting you on the spot.
Tell me, how does the public get access? I mean, are you putting out books? Like, is the idea to put out books that we can buy books? We can buy the books of these folks. Do they get on? Like the other night, I was just watching the awards, and it was, they did it all virtually, and it was thrilling. And I was like, imagine if one of these authors from inside could be a part of that celebratory activity. So what is the game or end game? And do these authors, do they get compensated for this? Do they get paid if their book sells? Like, talk a little bit about some of that? Like, can these folks become successful in successful writers in their own right?
Do you want me to take that one, Hikari? So yeah, I mean, what we do is we publish their work on our website, which is, you know, available to everyone. And within even the website, we have different levels of that. You know, anyone that wants to get their work done, we believe everybody should have a voice. Like, we don't, you know, believe people, you know, that people of only certain caliber of writing should be there. So we do try to publish a little bit of everything from everyone we receive. Some people are just happy with that, getting their work or their poems up there with their names. Others want to delve more deeply into journalism, delve more deeply into the skills and learn more. And, you know, they start growing as writers. For them, we have what we call the featured and spotlight section. The ones that are just really, really talented, you know, even the ones that aren't trained are just really talented, that we want to highlight and work more with. So what we do is we feature them and we, you know, spotlight their stories, but we also, after they publish a certain number of featured stories, we offer them the chance to be contributing writers for our website. And then we work more one-on-one with them to hone on their, you know, skills and to train them more individually one-on-one. To that end, two of our guys have already, one of our contributing writers, he was published, Joe Garcia, he was published in the Washington Post just over the summer. And another one of our guys, Steve Brooks, he was just published in the San Francisco Public Press, and we're working on another one project right now with one of our contributing writers to get published in another newspaper by the end of the year. So these are the types of ways we move and we work with them as they grow. In terms of the books, you know, we're not a publishing firm in terms of larger books, but we are planning to put out a best of 2020 anthology into next year, where we kind of really highlight the best work and send that inside so that more people can see the work in a one curated place. We also, every single person that writes for us, we do acknowledge them personally. We send them letters, we send the work back to them, and we also will share other stories that other writers have done that was featured or spotlighted, so people can kind of see what else is out there and what other people are writing as well. You know, it's a process of trying to get all of our material inside. We've been really lucky that we have partners that are, you know, providing our submissions guidelines and sharing our work inside, but that's something that we're definitely growing for sure.
And to answer your other question, Ivy, you know, we are a nonprofit organization right now. We're operating on a shoestring budget out of our own pockets. We are applying for grants, but, you know, I think, you know, revenue sharing, if we are fortunate enough to get there, it's definitely something that we would love to do. Right now, we're working towards the goal of being able to pay small honorariums for the best work. So that would be featured and spotlight stories. The anthology is something that we are hoping to offer, you know, for free or at cost. It's really a book to send inside the wall so they can see each other's work. It's not something that we think of as for revenue. I think our ultimate goal is to get our writers to a point where they can be published in outside publications that could compensate them. And so we see ourselves as kind of being the starting place for a writing career. Anybody who writes at least one story for us automatically gets a portfolio page. And so that's where all of the stories that they put with us ends up, and it looks quite nice. So it's a professional looking portfolio page. And so Shaheen mentioned Joe's story in the Post, and another one of our writers, Steve Brooks' story in the Public Press, and we help them through that, but, you know, we don't take anything. The earnings from that is entirely theirs.
And is the form strictly journalism, or are you embracing fiction and poetry and all kinds of other writings?
Yeah, we do take poetry, we take, you know, essays and opinion pieces. We did decide, because we are journalistic, that fiction isn't going to work. One, we didn't get a lot of fiction submissions to begin with, because I think people were just they were passionate about telling their own stories. But we decided that, you know, in terms of the model, that we wanted to keep it towards narrative nonfiction. And I am a huge believer in poetry. I think that poetry is the way many of our men and women express themselves inside. So one of the really amazing possibilities and opportunities that we see out of the Prison Journalism Project is, how do we shape that genre, that journalistic narrative poetry, spoken word, to really tell stories, to be storytelling in a journalistic fashion. So we, you know, some of our best things that have actually like made us emotional has come out of the poetry that we've seen in there. So that is one of the things that we're really passionate about, how to develop that as a journalistic tool, and not just, oh, you know, that's not journalism. We believe it is. We believe that it absolutely is and can be, and that's one of the things that we're developing right now.
So Chris, I know I put you on the spot, but do you have a do you have a piece you'd like to read?
Yeah, I do.
All right, look, sit up, sit up.
Wow.
I know we put you on the spot here, but this is the time to shine, my friend.
All right. So I wrote something a while back called Cell Blocks. And yeah, so I'll just like I'll just go off and start reading it. This is rhythmic poetry, by the way. Back to cells, my soul is worn, believing lies past this tell. I can't get past my past. So I blow till I elevate, past the grass, drowning sorrow and pain. Fuck it, past the flash, I'm harboring flame. It's crazy when your heart is so heavy, it's hard to maintain. Dearly departed, his name, the oppressed is really impoverished. A hopeless romantic, a poet is merely a prophet, chose to speak to a congregation that he rock and cold, ready to ride, I locked and load, household very deprived, want no pots, no stove, mom could barely provide, her eyes shot and swole, those tears clouded up my heavenly skies, I heard heaven's deprived and she's an angel, I peeped past her heavenly guise, but I'm anchored to this earth, so I severed my ties until me and the heavens collided, forever I'm striving, painting pictures with words and a regular rhyming, man, he's deep enough to rep with Poseidon, but you can't tame the rebel inside him, so I'm riot bound.
You know, the poets community, you know, you snap your fingers, you know.
So I want to say two things. Chris, two things. One, if you send that to me, we'll publish it on the page with all the show notes and everything, and that would be beautiful. And second, that's the best piece of rhythmic poetry I've ever heard from an Ivy League graduate.
Love it.
I don't even know what that means, but I can tell you I'm not an Ivy League graduate, so I'm a little jealous.
So we have a few more minutes before we have to jump off. But sort of give us where would you like to see this program go? Like, what is?
Oh, you're cutting out a little bit, Babz. I'll pick it up. So tell us your vision, right? And where's this going to go?
Give us a sense of what you hope to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we probably each have slightly different answers, but I can go first. I would like us to be doing some collaborating with our writers, doing some really interesting journalism that we can partner with mainstream publications to get out. And I'd like and ultimately I think the more we can crowd the media with these voices, and if you know, and the more we can get them at the seat of criminal justice conversations, you know, I would be thrilled.
Well, you guys certainly have to have a lot of contacts. I mean, isn't that part of this? Amanda Cantrell introduced us, and so there's a shout out for Amanda. Yeah. But you guys must have tons of contacts who you can bring to this project and introduce to people that they probably never would have considered before.
I mean, absolutely. This whole project, honestly, the way it's grown and the way people have been, you know, participating in it, the lifeblood is our volunteers, and every single one of them has been like some way, shape, or form connected with people that we know. And like I was telling you, Kari, that I really feel like when something is it's like my whole life, we've been working up to this. Like Amanda is somebody that I met as like a young, in my early 20s journalist, right? Like we started our kind of like, I started my career out with Amanda, and she's now like one of our editors. And it's just all these people that are connecting us to different types of, to me, that is something that's inspired. So for me, my sort of vision for it going forward, in addition to what Yukari said, is I really want to bring that educational material. I'm with Chris's mom. I think that education is that basis for everybody to mentally, emotionally, physically escape, those walls. And so for me, I want to create this really profound, easily digestible educational material for journalism. We're working on a textbook actually that's in comic form, because one of the things we've learned is that, our men and women, some of them are visual learners. They're all different levels of, education. And we want to make it so that it's accessible to everyone, because everybody has a story to tell. So it's about creating the curriculum. We want programs and universities and just volunteers who want to be able to come in, that maybe are just independent volunteers, have material ready for them that they can go in and teach this, because we want this to spread around the country. We want every
Because the only other prison writing component, Jeff, that we know of is Wally Lamb's piece with the women at York Correctional Prison in Connecticut. I don't really know of anybody else who has a writing piece. And then Bettis, our good friend from Yale, just put out a piece of a book of poetry. He's the brother that went to prison, got out, went to Yale Law School, tried to get his pass the bar in Connecticut, couldn't pass, finally passed, and he's a serious writer. And as a matter of fact, he just finished a piece with Titus Kafar, Jeff. They had a piece at Next Haven showcasing art, written word, and artistic expression. So this has potential to really grow and develop on anybody's, based on anybody's belief that it could grow and develop.
Yeah, we'd be happy to introduce you to those folks too, if you don't know them already. They're powerful. So why don't you give us what the takeaways are here? All three of you can quickly just give us takeaways and your contact information so people can get in contact with you. And since you're a nonprofit, we assume you accept donations too. So you can pitch that too if you'd like.
I did want to just highlight something that Yukari and Shaheen and I spoke about in the past, which really compelled me to get involved with this project. And it was giving people who are incarcerated an opportunity to be published, right? So that right there is, even though they shy away from how truly radical it is truly radical, all right? Because like I was doing a video for a couple of my colleagues who I spent time with, or who I know have done time, who are like in respected careers currently. And when I went to Google, the first thing I've seen, was their charges. I seen rap sheets, I seen mug shots. I didn't see any scholarly work. And I'm like, this is crazy. I'm like, you spent some of them have their bachelors, some of them have their masters, but because there's nothing that's actually truly published about them, you still get redirected to their past. And so what Shaheen and Yukari is doing with this project is they're offsetting that aspect of those Google algorithms. So like, rather than, being redirected to this person's past, you'll be redirected to their poetry. You'll be redirected to their contribution to the prison journalism project, right? And that right there, just, even if it's just for a second, it allows the audience to view them in a human light just for that 1 second. So if you do find out about their, criminal past afterwards, at least you were introduced to their intellectual work before you had an opportunity to judge them on their past crimes. And I think that right there is like the biggest takeaway from this, from this project for me.
Oh my God, that's the best thing I've heard all day.
Yeah,
and my
powerful.
day just got started. That right there is the most powerful thing I will take with me in my spirit all day today. Thank you for that.
No wonder you graduated from an Ivy League college.
Yes, that was very meaningful to me.
Yeah. So Yukari and Shaheen, you want to give us takeaways and give us contact information?
Yeah, so we are at prisonjournalismproject.org, and all our information is there. If you would like to share your story, look for the share your story button, and we provide everything that we've got on there. There's a newsletter, a monthly newsletter that we do. Check out Chris's multimedia section. There's some really amazing stuff there.
From Sky at Prison Journalism Project.
Yes.
I got your newsletter recently.
Yes, exactly. And then we have a donate button as well. And we would appreciate, $1 can make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I like that too.
Beautiful.
$1 can make a difference.
I like that. Shaheen, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I want everyone to know that this project is this is more than a passion project for all of us. I mean, this is like our life, and this is something that we feel that we have been given this responsibility and this job to do. So we take that very, very, very seriously. For us, when people go on the Prison Journalism Project and they read these stories, when the algorithms start changing, that to us is a huge win. And, obviously I'm going to plug the donation thing again, because it is really important for us. Our goal is to be able to pay our men and women, obviously we'd like to be funded too, because all of it's coming out of our pockets right now. But for more than anything, I think anytime I look at that, I say, how can I start giving these honorariums? Because that is our goal for going into the new year. So as she said, if you support what we do, then please support us, because I think that we really do want to do this. We want to make a difference.
Beautiful.
Thank you for that. I so enjoyed this conversation, and thank you for being our guest and allowing us to uplift this story about this.
Thank you for having us.
And I've got folks who are watching who want me to connect y'all. I'm just getting texts to connect y'all. So I'm going to connect y'all to these folks and to the brother. I have a girlfriend who runs the Elm City Lit Fest here that's just had her first successful Lit Fest. And so she texts me to make sure I reach out to you, brother. So I'm going to give you Ife Gardine's contact information so that you can be a part of next year's festivities and celebrations. So yes, the power of social media.
Happy to hear that.
So thank you all for being with us. This was a wonderful, wonderful hour. And Babz, so another great show under our belt, right?
I really enjoyed this very much. Thank them and thank y'all. Thank you, Harry. And Jeff, you owe me a call.
I will call you this afternoon, Babz. I promise.
All right. Okay. And
right,
thank you, Community Foundation, for
thank you
your
so
continued
much
support.
Thank you all. Blessings to you all,
right.
and have a wonderful weekend.
All right.
Thank you.
Enjoy your weekend.
Bye. Thanks, Harry. All right. Are we still? All right, Jeff, I'm going to jump off.